We'll be starting in just a minute. We're just waiting for one more board.
Remember.
Oh, yes.
I always forget to. This is for online folks, not us.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty, are we all set? Everybody good? All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:04. If you can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of minutes for the regular meeting on March 14th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. Mr. King moves and Mrs. Anderson seconds. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to general functions, and our first item is staff, student, and community recognitions. Mr. Proof?
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. We have a special announcement tonight from the Micah Mountain High School Robotics Demonstration Team. Mr. Hasse, you want to introduce your crew?
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Cruz. Thank you for having us today. It's exciting that we have so many clubs on our campus, but some are kind of unsung heroes that, people don't recognize all the time. So I'm really excited that our nuts and bolts robotics team is here from Micah Mountain, and their first tech challenge is the competitions that they're in. Our coach is Mrs. Fosdick, and our mentor is Mr. Fosdick. And our students here are Dakota, Esteban, Avery, Mason, and Bella, and they have a demonstration today. This is fun.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Mason from team 15461, nuts and bolts robotic.
Nice
It's
to meet you.
Avery, Esteban, and Dakota on the build sub team. Ella on the business and programming sub team, and I'm also on the programming sub team.
So, we would like to just share with you our journey throughout this weekend. I really think the best way to do that is to explain what makes us unique as a team on our robot. Yeah, so like I said, we have to integrate our own brackets with our here. We're going to do this one and the last one.
We use photometry to determine the position of the robot relative to the field. We do this by using real world constants like the distance between the encoders along with their tracking wheel circumference. So first determine the robot's orientation and then its XY position on the field. This is obviously very powerful and autonomous, so the exact location of the robot. It also makes the programming process more.
The apps in the engineering design process, not the full program, but the speed that I know is some of the main engineering process. And when you speak of consider our first iteration, we're increasing mobility with come but fail to reach any of our goals on the field. Our second and third iterations were a single and second stem two-take field. This will increase our reach on the higher goals called junctions for the match. We also changed orientation of our wheels on the river from overhead to underhand grab to get better control of river countries higher grab.
For our autonomous period, we use our custom single sleeve that has three simple colors, red, green, and blue, because these are the three colors that the color sensor receives. Using any other color to create an overlap in values and typically give us a misreading.
Yeah, so now we would like to share the impact that robotics has had on each of us, recently.
Yeah, I think robotics most help me with targeted technical writing, especially considering writing the engineering portfolio. You have to add a lot of information in such a concise format. I think this definitely helps for me for something like the ACT essay, which gives no sources of this prompt.
And in robotics, it also greatly increased my communication skills, like during my time with our judges, we have to make sure they understand that we know about material that we're talking about. This would really increase my cooperation skills and projects at school.
And for me, robotics has helped me with brainstorming new ideas. When I got my brainstorm was as factory. But as the season progressed, I was able to cooperate with my team to build this unique robot out of scratch, and with the help of critical thinking strategy, I believe that's what I'm most. You were able to have opportunities to visit a team STEM night, one of those sort of things. There were one-on-one interactions with younger students mentoring them about technicians. We were able to improve our leadership skills through the Bolts acronym, building outstanding leaders through service.
So I think for me, what's impacted me the most is just my confidence in my public speaking skills. Because back when I was doing robotics in middle school, I was really shy and really like soft spoken. But one thing that I didn't know we had to do in robotics was presentations to judges. So when we were practicing, I was really quiet and nobody could really hear me. So my coach made me don't stand outside of the room and speak loud enough for everyone inside to hear me. And I think now I'm living a lot more confident with a lot more.
And so in the robot game, it's split into three main parts: autonomous, ground control, and in-game. And so the first 30 seconds is the autonomous portion, which is set out now. And during this portion, the robot must go to the signal sleep, and by that, it's randomized the position. And so it has to read the signal sleep and then determine its correct position. And so for this one, it should go through one part on the left for me. And then it's also going to drop off the phone in the terminal right there. And then should hopefully park in the signal zone as it did. And then after autonomous comes the ground control period. And to score points during this period, the team is gonna get these cones and pour them either on ground, low, or there's two more junctions, medium and high junctions. And so these are all the junctions for low junctions. And then you get more points the higher the junction you score on. And so there's not just one robot on the field at a time. There's four, two per alliance. And so both of these alliances are trying to score as many points as they can. The red and blue alliance. And so right now, there's two drivers, Avery and Bella, and they're working the place cones on the junctions. And then you get to see them sometimes come down to Dakota to play cones on the field. He's a human player right now. And so this would be like the end of the driver control period going into in-game. And so Dakota just added the beacon, which allows for junctions to be linked. They just tap the junction and now it's on for in-game.
I have a lot of questions. So when you have two people driving, I'm assuming you're working together to drive the same one.
That would be correct. In some teams, you can have one, but in most ways, people it's like have two, because there's a lot of different goals in the fields that you have to go into get into them. Like this one right here, we have different junctions and play that we need And the other one we focus on like making sure we don't lose our game elements and with that.
It's very impressive.
So you mentioned during your presentation that usually there's more than one robot on a field at any given time. So does that add to the difficulty of moving throughout? Like sometimes do you have to change your path, desired path, because there's another robot there?
Yeah, definitely. You wanna discuss everything?
Definitely. So usually, during the season, I believe that we have like a breakdown, develop like an effective strategy to get the coach to get the coach ready to get the qualify this as well as possible. And before the lines, not just first of all, partners on their what they can do and what they cannot do.
So I have a question and a statement. So I just want to give my statement first. I'm really impressed with watching how you each are taking a portion to talk about it and giving each other opportunities too. So I just want to say kudos for that. Like I love seeing that we get to hear from all of you. And so watching different presentations I've seen and you're being judged, that's a big thing, right? They judge on that. So you guys are doing a really great job. So have you competed this year already, or is it you that you're getting ready to compete?
So I think our season started it started on August, September. And basically we have 3 qualifiers and we just had state and yeah, so you get 3 chances to qualify for state and it's kind of a complicated system though. They first do like points based on they have like a ranking and it depends how many teams, because some qualifiers will have a bunch of teams and some have a smaller amount of teams. And depending on that depends how many people advance. But we were really lucky that we actually advanced at our second qualifier, but we still had to go to our third one. But we ended up doing really well. We earned a lot of awards that we were trying to win. And honestly, we're just really proud.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing with us. So we should do that. Yeah. Mr. Bester.
Great teamwork. I love to see intelligent folks like yourself coming together to create something like this. I have to ask though, what was the most difficult part of this project? I see that you're creating your own pieces, parts to keep it together, but what was the most difficult part?
I would say that really consisted of several parts. The earlier we worked on geometry, which was a big goal in the prominence of the main period. Things that really helped us make sure we didn't mess up, because in the goal hooking area, we had a 2x2 block area over here. And if any part of it, any part was out of it, we wanted to put points we did from it. So having that and making sure we were where we wanted to focus us. But also our grabbers are really common, because as Fonda said earlier, when she went to this one of our original ideas for it was a co-worker point, but then I was flipping it and making sure it's like strong on there. So it will comes with that too.
Very good. Well, thanks so much for being here. Super. Yeah.
Great.
Some of it's straightforward, so sorry guys.
Congratulations on an excellent season. And congratulations to your coach and your mentor as well.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mrs. Fosdick. And Bella, I know your coach just a little bit, and I am certain that she would encourage you to have a strong voice. Yeah, right. she's a great mentor in many ways. I would say that's one of her strengths. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much.
I'll be
Thank you.
there. Thank you.
You guys did a great job.
That's cool. As they're packing up, we have a few other staff recognitions. Like to begin with Mr. Barger, followed by Mr. Breen.
Thank you, Mr. Caruth, President Pratt, members of the board. I would like to just take a minute and talk about the MICA team. Ms. Fosdick started this very program at our school several years back when Mason was one of our students. Bella's been with us for 9.5 years of her life, so a couple boxers over there now as bolts. And so, I was looking at the words up here where education is a community effort, and what Ms. Fosdick has brought to the Vail School District as a parent and some of her experience getting kids to present. She's no longer working with our school, but we have two FTC teams that also competed at state and back in over rodeo break, and winning awards. It's nice if your robot does everything it's supposed to, but it's also really nice to have kids be able to stand up and speak and say, this is important, this is what we did, these are the decisions we made. And she's always done a great job coaching that, and our students have always won some awards. So I want to recognize Ms. Fosdick for that. One of my recognitions that I had planned was to recognize our current coach, Donna Mashagna, for coordinating two teams and getting them both to qualify for state and traveling with them over rodeo break and getting down before the snow hit that weekend in Flagstaff. Also want to recognize science teacher Elaine McKenzie for her work with Science Fair and Science Olympiad, both kind of hitting at the same time of the year and getting students down to SARCEF to get some recognitions for their science fair projects. Want to lift up our art teacher, Ms. Beth Campanelli at Vail Pride Day. Obviously, there's a huge art display. She has art from all students to cover. And so she not only has to do the big high school display, but she's also got to coordinate for our K-8 students. A lot of work to do. It rests on her shoulders, and she always does a really great job with that. I want to recognize her for that. Also want to recognize our high school robotics team, which is First Robotics Challenge. It's a little different, a little bigger competition. Our teams recently competed in Utah and in California. And sometimes the robot doesn't perform exactly the way you want it to perform, but our students did well. They handled it well. They presented their case well on the stuff that they needed to do, and really proud of their efforts there. And then finally, I want to recognize Mr. LeBlanc, our business teacher. We are in the season for competition. We recently had our middle school FBLA state championships. 2 of our students have qualified for nationals. Starting next week is the high school competition, and we'll hopefully get some high school students to qualify, and then we'll be coming to you with travel, hopefully, so that students can compete in Atlanta this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barger. Mr. Breen, followed by Mr. Carney.
President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, members of the board, thank you for not making me follow the students from Micah Mountain. Glad Mr. Barger was able to do that. I have some recognitions tonight, quite a few for you, just some awesome things going on from different folks on our team and across the campuses. First, I'd like to recognize some individuals that put on this really great conference this last Saturday. And it was called Find Your Fire. It was an EdTech statewide conference that some of our Vail teachers and site technology coordinators put this together. And they offered this statewide. It was free. They made it free to our Vail teachers. Got a variety of sponsorships and things like that, and then also partnered with other organizations like ASTE to put this on. And they had a great turnout. About 85 people signed up for this event. And on that planning committee, I'd like to recognize Rita Boyd, Suzanne Brazel, Amanda Calkins, Emily Marshall, Elaine Murphy, and Jen Porter. And then we also had some of those folks who were presenting, and then other teachers and people from across our district that presented. And those folks are Rita Boyd, Suzanne Brazel, Amanda Calkins, some of the same ones here, Nicole Hoffman, Emily Marshall, Caroline Marvin, Melissa Matias, Paloma Monroy, Elaine Murphy, Lauren Owens, Aaron Raybuck, Donald Reese, Travis Thatcher, and then we had some tech support from Gino Gerasol. Anyways, I heard it was a great event. I was happened to be up at ASU with my son that weekend, but just awesome to see our Vail folks leading a statewide event like that. So thanks to those folks for doing that. Also, want to recognize a few folks from our student data team and a couple of our counselors. They went to our National Power School Users Group conference in Las Vegas about a week or so ago. And that's a national conference where they can learn new things about Power School and bring it back. Some other great things that we heard was, man, we saw all these sessions where you know, a lot of people are trying to figure out stuff that we did last year, some big pain point things we did with Power School last year. And it was just really confirming to see other school districts are not quite there yet. And so some of those things we put in place a year ago, other school districts are just now starting to explore. But I'd like to recognize Norm Purdy, Veronica Preciado, and Don Ball from our student data team. And then our lead district counselor, Amanda Cook, and our Cienega counselors, Jessica Erickson, also attended that. There's a really cool program called Cyber Patriots that we have at Old Vale Middle School and now some folks at Cienega High School. And this was put in place. It's a national program for youth cyber education. It was created by the Air Force Association, and their mission is to direct students towards careers in cybersecurity, other computer science and technology fields. And we started this program, not we, Melissa Matias started this program here in Vail a couple of years ago, and it's just really taken off. We have a lot of students that are participating in this now, and those students that are participating at Cienega came from Old Vale, and she's really grown this program. And just this year, they actually made it to semifinals. Now, this program is an international program, and so that's basically second place in Arizona. They were just really close to making it to nationals. But for the second year in the program, Mrs. Matias has done a great job. She's our site technology coordinator at Old Vale Middle School, about to move to Andrada next year. But just kudos to her and, of course, all of the students and parents for making that program successful. I'd like to recognize Mark Mullins and Micah Jensen on our technology team for helping to lead an effort to rebuild some important servers and data center stuff. We have a rack that we have at one of our data centers, and it's sort of like the engine room, if you will, to a lot of our technology department in terms of servers and infrastructure. So everything from how people get onto the Wi-Fi to authenticating to Power School to Beyond Textbooks calendars, many other services and servers are hosted there. And we completely rebuilt that infrastructure. Started it about a year ago in terms of the planning and purchasing things, and we just were able to get that completely rebuilt, and just wanted to shout out to them for really helping lead that effort. A lot of behind the scenes stuff that just to keep things going. Speaking of behind the scenes stuff to keep things going, I really want to give Michelle Quiros a shout out. The amount of progress we've been able to make this last year and 9 months in our technology department would not be possible without the combined coordinated effort that Michelle and I have, and Michelle and her team. And we've just been working really well together. And like I said, all of these efforts take resources, and without those resources, we wouldn't be able to make these district-wide technology things happen in addition to all the things that we have going on at the school. So thank you, Michelle, for helping us with those resources. Finally, I'd like to just recognize our site technology coordinators. They're obviously doing a lot of things all year round. But this time of year, as you know, we're in statewide testing season. And so that's a little bit of a stressful time of year for everybody, right? Our school leaders, our teachers, our student achievement teachers, but then also our site technology coordinators. Since everything has moved online, those high stakes, you know, have really fallen a lot on their shoulders, and they just really do a lot to make sure that technology is there and in place to make sure that the students and the teachers have what they need. And so just want to recognize Jennifer Billings, Amanda Body, Suzanne Brazel, Amanda Calkins, Wayne Grittis, Bob Gudeman, Nicole Hoffman, Daniel Hughes, Dave Jones, Bob Koenig, Josh Little, Caroline Marvin, Melissa Matias, Elaine Murphy, Dion Nieto, Jen Porter, Debbie Schmutz, Brian Turner, and Tom White. Sorry, that was so long, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Carney. Thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, and members of the board. Three groups I'd like to recognize tonight. I want to start with folks at Corona Foothills Middle School. We have an open assistant principal's position, and very soon we'll be bringing a recommendation to you for that particular position. But I still wanted to take time to recognize them now as we've wrapped up interviews. I want to thank Brianne Brace, student achievement teacher, the following teachers: Joanna Williams, Debbie Fitzpatrick, and Kara Evans. Also office manager Stephanie Pfaff, health aide Tiffany Drain, site council parent Millie Holleran, and then principal Margaret Stewart. A couple common threads from this group. It is the fourth quarter is you're drinking from a fire hose. You have a foot in the fourth quarter world, but also next year. Testing season is upon us as well. Yet despite all of that, just the thoughtfulness and the caring approach they took for this through this process, it's evident they greatly and deeply care about their school and who their part of their leadership team is going to be. So I just want to thank them for their professionalism and their dedication in that endeavor. Also would like to recognize members of the Vail School District Foundation. Last evening, we had our annual donor dinner where we took an opportunity to thank those donors for efforts that they've provided monetarily so that we can support teachers in classrooms. And we had some of our teachers there as well, talking about the impact that that's had on them. Since 2019, the Vail Education or School District Foundation has been able to award $75,000 in grants for not only classrooms, but scholarships for students. And as we think about our motto in Vail, where education is community effort, I think it's one thing to have words, but there needs to be living, breathing examples to say those aren't just words, there's actually actions to back it up. And I think the Vail School District Foundation is one of those live examples of where education is community effort. So I want to recognize the following board members: Stacy Winstrick, President; Jean Peglow, Vice President; Catherine Byers, Secretary; Linda Kubiak, Treasurer; Debbie King, Darcy Mentone, Rob Sanchez, Stephanie Stark, Laura Gruner, and also Justin Walker. And then I also would lastly like to recognize bus driver Art Melendez. I want to share with you that the impetus for this recognition actually came from another staff member, Debbie Adams, who coaches cheer among her many duties in the district. She coaches cheerleading at Old Vail Middle School. And she was so inspired by this bus driver that she reached out to both myself and Mr. Caruth and Mr. Brown to share the following story. She talked about Art Melendez, who, by the way, he lives in Rio Rico. And he drives out to the Vail School District every day to work in our transportation department, despite being recruited by several other local school districts who are on his way here. And I think about that loyalty, and I think that's really impressive because if you think about our guiding principles, one was that we value traditional values such as hard work and loyalty. And so his loyalty is greatly appreciated. He's known at transportation for just having a positive and caring attitude. He not only loves to represent the district on his daily runs, but for field trips as well. And he had a recent field trip to Goodyear, Arizona for an overnight trip, actually, as the OPMS cheerleaders were going to be in competition on a Saturday morning. And that Saturday morning, as the young ladies got ready to head to the competition, a young lady was distraught because she had lost her wallet with $50 in it, right? And he noticed how upset she was. His response was, "No big deal. You go compete. I'm going to go dumpster diving." And so talk about going the extra mile. He went into the dumpster, found her wallet, and was able to greet them as they came back from the competition with the good news that he'd found their money. And they were able to greet him with the good news that they had won first place. And according to them, he was the biggest cheerleader in the place that day when he found that out. So just want to talk about that connection. It's easy to just think that bus drivers just get kids to and from places, but that connection they make is often the first connection of the day for kids and the last connection as well. And just sincerely grateful for Mr. Melendez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Have one district-wide recognition. Gloria Bernal from Andrada Polytechnic High School is receiving the Attorney General's Distinguished Service Leadership Award for her work with crime victims, both those that she serves in school and also her work out of school. So congratulations to Gloria. And I also just think that it highlights the very talented group of counselors, student service coordinators, and behavior specialists that we have across the district and their diverse skill set. So congratulations to Gloria for that award, and also thank you to those groups of people who do that kind of work with our students every day. That's all we have for staff, student, and community recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Caruth. We'll move on to call to the public and acknowledgement of public requests to speak. At this time, I do not have any requests from the public to speak to the board. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the board tonight? Not seeing any, then we'll move on to the correspondence and written reports. We'll start with superintendent's report. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you, President Pratt, and members of the board. As several people mentioned in their pieces, and Mrs. Penn reported at a board meeting prior to our spring break, we're underway in the testing season. And I just want to acknowledge that work is happening across our schools. The AZ-SCI test is going on right now for 5th, 8th, and 11th graders. The ACT window is open also this week, and the Vail Innovation Center began testing today. Micah Mountain and Pantano began testing on Thursday with that. And then also our COGAT assessment is happening for all second graders to take a look at how we might be able to identify those high academic students in those grades. And then the statewide assessments, the ASA test for 3rd through 8th graders begins next week, and the Aspire window as well for 9th graders. I had one other thing on my report, and that's the air show, but I imagine there's a few others who probably have that as well. So I'll just acknowledge that I attended the air show at the district booth on Sunday afternoon. It was a great event. That's all I have for superintendent's report.
Thank you, and thank you for being there. Our next item is board reports. At this time, board members may share a report if they have one. Does anybody have a board report? Ms. Anderson, you go first.
Yeah, so the past couple weeks, I was able to attend a site tour at Sonita Valley and Rincon Vista, and I just want to thank Katie Griffin and Dean Norris for those tours. It was really great to be there and on their site and their campus and see the good they're doing there. I love seeing the fine arts at Rincon Vista, seeing the art all over the walls, and I think I was just amazed by that. And then one of the things I really appreciated at Sonita Valley was going into the Ventana area and meeting students there and seeing that program there at Sonita Valley. And then last night, I was able to go to the Fox Theater for Mesquite Elementary's 5th grade musical, Newsies, and just so impressed with these 5th graders and the amazing work they did. And I could see the love that these kids have for their teacher, Mrs. Port. And I think one of my favorite moments last night was a moment where the mics weren't where they were supposed to be. And first of all, I love live theater because you have to learn to work through things. And I watched these students work through something in a split second that could have been really hard. I mean, I think it was hard, but they just were smooth about it, went straight through and came up with a way to work through that. And so I was just really impressed with these kids and loved seeing that they got to have this experience at the Fox Theater. Thanks.
Thank you. Other board reports? Yes, Mr. Bester.
Sure, thank you. Well, over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to join with Mr. Caruth to do the reality lunch over at Acacia Elementary. And I'm always just so elated to meet with educators, young, smart, compassionate, passionate educators that love what they do, love what they teach, love their students, and of course the school district. So I definitely appreciate that opportunity to sit down, break bread, get to know folks, and inevitably have them have that one-on-one time with a board member, with the superintendent, and ask really poignant questions and get the answers that they need at that level. So I definitely appreciate that opportunity. Beyond that, I did, for short instance, on Saturday, get the opportunity to attend the air show and celebrate with Darcy Mentone. I definitely appreciate Stacy as well as Kendra making that come to light and have the opportunity to be there as well. Great air show. Great opportunity to meet and greet some folks and introduce them to our district and all the wonderful things that we have, and hopefully get some more folks to participate with our school district. And last but certainly not least, probably be on the wagon here with Newsies was just a phenomenal. I was elated. I was taken aback. The music, the singing from 10-year-olds I've not seen that level of professionalism at such a young age. And, they just gripped their audience and they just didn't let go and they rocked the Fox Theater. So really appreciate for the invite and it was a phenomenal opportunity. I hope in the future we'll have more opportunities like that because it was awesome.
Thank you. Mr. King.
All right, as with Janet Head, I also did the site visits at Sneda Valley, Rincon Vista as well, and getting to see the kind of the background and, seeing what's all's going on over there. It's always good to see, the kind of the kids, but also the engagement from the leadership over there as well. I also did, last Friday I went to the Fort Tucson lunch with Department of Education and the lady who handles the ESA funding. So it was actually kind of neat. It was actually I was the only school board member in there. It was actually kind of neat to see people from all over Coon County being the only school board member in there from a public district. So I also did the air show. That was kind of fun. Helped get the banner set up because when I got there, it was stuck in the water tank. So I was kind of hanging out sideways. That was actually kind of fun. I did get to talk to a lot of people and try to actually recruit people to come in to also work for the district as coaches and others that were out there. And then last night going to Newsies with everybody, it was kind of interesting going there. You would expect to see lines around the block for a big blockbuster show, and you weren't necessarily. When I got there, when I was driving down there, the line was wrapped around the corner for the Fox, and I was like, oh, okay. So once I got parked, I was like, it's gonna be, it should be. Nope. The line was still wrapped around the corner. It got even longer to get into the Fox. So it was a packed theater last night. It was actually a lot of fun to watch all the kids kind of get in there and then see how much love for the students that everybody had there, but also that love being reciprocated for the staff as well. That was actually it kind of brought back what the district actually means to not just those from outside, but those within as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board reports? No. I have a quick board report. I went to a reality check lunch with Mr. Cruz at Desert Willow. Again, a wonderful opportunity to visit with staff, to get to know them better, and to just feel the culture on that campus. It's a healthy culture, just like all of our other schools. I also did the tour at Sneda Valley and Rincon Vista. I loved seeing all the classroom decorations as we were walking through. And I know that's not the most important thing, but as you walk through, you just feel that ownership that the teachers have for their classrooms, and it comes out in the themes that they have or the things that they choose to put on the walls. And then just seeing the engagement as you see that they're not wasting any minute. These kids are all busy and you can see that they care about each other. I loved, as Ms. Anderson said, walking around Rincon Vista's campus, seeing the pottery, the art, the ceramics, maybe that's what it's called, ceramics, decorating the buildings. I loved that. Beautiful campus. And again, wonderful, great quality educators there. So very grateful for them. And then last night, I also attended Newsies. What an amazing experience. I don't think I've ever seen a fifth grade class or a fifth grade school that could pull that off. I mean, it was just really incredible. I took my boys with me. We all enjoyed it. I thought what was really incredible to watch is this was Rochelle Port's her dream to do this at the Fox Theater, but it wasn't just her dream. She made it her dream, but then everybody at that site and the teachers, the parents, rallied around her and made it happen. So this wasn't just her doing it, it was everybody in that community doing it. And so to see that come together last night and to see that ownership that everybody had on this shared dream is what it became, was really fun to see. And what an amazing memory for these fifth grade students to be able to perform at a historic downtown theater in Tucson. It was a highlight of my week for sure. So great job to them. Okay, if there's no other board reports, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items, 1 second. All items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion at this time. There'll be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item? No, not seeing any. Mr. Crew?
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. It's recommended that the Vale School District Governing Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
President Pratt, motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Baxter. And Mr. King, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to old business. We have one item under old business. It's program coordinator for post-secondary success job description. It's an action item. Mr. Crew?
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. This item was previously studied at the last board meeting. Michelle Wood presented that, our Director of Special Education. She was unable to be here tonight. This is also my wheelhouse, so I'm comfortable with that as well. Functionally, this is an addition of a position to assist our students who have more significant needs successfully transition from our K-12 setting into their life setting and what that looks like. So felt when we looked at the outcomes of students in that group that we could do a little better job of helping them. Also, it functionally means how are we plugging those students into our local community? There aren't a lot of options here. They're emerging, but not a lot. Most of those options are further into town. So really need somebody who's passionate about making that happen. This position is able to be funded with our federal special ed dollars or IDEA grant dollars. So there isn't a budget hit associated with creating this new position. So happy to answer any additional questions. But I'll make the recommendation to the Vale School District Governing Board approve the program coordinator for post-secondary success job description as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Mrs. Tippett and Mr. Buster, comments or questions? Ms. Anderson?
I don't have a question. I just want to reiterate probably what I said last time. Just I'm thrilled that this is being created because I've spoken with parents and I know this is a struggle. And Mr. Caruth, as you talked about that jobs in our local area is hard because there's not a lot. And in talking with parents, just the need to find support there. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I know we studied this last time. I love what you said just about that passion. I just can't wait to meet the person who is identified, who's hired for this job. And I'm really grateful that it's one that you guys are bringing forward. So thank you. So if there's no other comments or questions, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. We'll move on to new business. Our first item is incentive pay packet addendum, and this is also an action item. Mr. Crew?
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. The packet has been approved by the board at a previous meeting, but based on some of the feedback that we gathered through that process, we went back and made some adjustments, and Mrs. Penn is here to bring those forward and recommend those changes. Mrs. Penn.
Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. Back in our January 24th board meeting, when we were looking at the incentive pay program, one of the conversations that came out of that at the board level was just a request that we maybe just go back and look at ways that we could streamline, because the scoring of all of these wonderful programs, that's a lot of work. And there are some of the EEPs that look very similar from site to site. And is there any way that we can streamline this? So we went back, pulled together a focus group of principals to help us brainstorm ideas to be able to make some recommendations. We included our technology team because they are so integral in overseeing this process, and so much of it is also done electronically that we needed to make sure we weren't getting out on a limb with something that we brought forward that would actually not be possible from a technology perspective. So this group of administrators from curriculum and the principals and technology worked through what might be possible for this year and what might be possible for next year. And I've come back and done a brief overview of some of those ideas. Some of them that are things that we can do right now that will impact scoring this year was looking at our National Honor Society at each level and our student council at each level, high school, middle school, and elementary school. Back in the 2015 school year, those were part of the stipend piece of our incentive pay program. They were moved into the EEP piece. And so that seemed like something we could look at right away. Those are positions that we really can't do without. The EEPs are designed to be part of that passion work at schools. Not to say that those in these positions aren't doing passion work, but the reality is these are not positions that are optional. So we have to have somebody fill them each year. So it made sense to move those back into the stipend piece, which has the impact of eliminating the need for doing the scoring of each of those at each school site. So potentially that's 44 of the EEPs that would just be able to come right out right away. We'll continue to look at other options for next year, things that we had talked about as far as like the templates and things like that just need a little more time. But we then took this recommendation to our full group of principals to get their input to see whether that was something that everyone would support. It had overwhelming support from our principal group. So we're bringing it here tonight as you know, a request for your support on shifting this back into the stipend position in the leadership packet, which has the effect of having it come from the same pool of money as well. So it's not a shift of finances from one bucket to another. It's the same bucket.
So with that, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the amendment to the incentive pay packet to include student council site coordinator and National Honor Society site coordinator as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. King and Mrs. Anderson, comments or questions? Ms. Tibbet.
So I felt a little grinchy bringing that up. And I too could picture Mr. Calvin Baker going, this is why we do this. But this is kind of exactly what I had in mind. And the question that I have is the stipend piece. For example, how many points would that represent if we were grading it on an EP?
Yeah, great question, Mr. Bruce.
I'm going to phone Mrs. Kuros because I'm noticing in the eye of Mrs. Penn that she doesn't remember, and neither do I, the exact point value. Is it $120 per point now?
160.
160 per point divided into that number.
Right around 11.
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah,
Right now?
for right now, yeah.
I was gonna say, you can reserve the right to ask.
I
more.
reserve the right to ask more questions if
Yes.
something pops up.
Perfect, Miss Anderson.
I just want to say thanks. Like when you said that the principals had a resounding yes, I can imagine. Like, I just think this is great. Thank you. For going back and looking at that. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Pause for a second and let Kelly think about it.
No, I'm
No, you're good. Okay. Thank you so much for really listening to, I thought it was a great suggestion. And I think even Mr. Baker would approve.
Okay. Don't tell him if he doesn't know.
So thank you for listening to that and taking it back and working it through. I think this is great. So this is an action item. So at this time I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Oh, you're still probably, okay. The next item is our spring intersession. It's an informed item.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. Sitting here Tuesday, it's hard to believe that 6 days ago, business days ago, we were on spring break, but because it feels like months ago now. However, 6 business days ago, we were on spring break, and also on spring break, we had intercession happening, and we spoke about that. I just wanted a chance to do a quick overview of what took place with our spring intercession. Mrs. Penn.
And thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board. As you probably are aware, we do an awful lot of intentional work with our students to make sure that they have every opportunity to learn. And it is our position that that is the responsibility of the adults, is to provide those opportunities. Some students need more opportunities than others, but we are very fortunate in that we have a calendar that allows us to take advantage of some breaks from school to really focus in on the needs of some of our students and provide them with additional opportunities. So on top of what we do with Reteach and Enrich, on top of what we do with our targeted after-school tutoring, we provide opportunities during intercession for our students who are a little bit behind to come in and have some additional targeted instruction on those skills and standards that they've been working on through the quarter. And so that's the work that has just been done at each of our sites. Student achievement teachers have organized our teachers. They've worked with the transportation department. They've provided for administrative oversight. Oftentimes during break, that is the student achievement teacher that steps into that position. And through all of that work, served 15% of our student population over intercession to provide those additional opportunities. We had 597 elementary students from grades 3 through 5. We had 304 middle school students, and we had 826 high school students come in and take advantage of our intercession program. It's very successful. Want to appreciate those who did work over that first week of break to make this a possibility for our kids. And now they're coming back. They're moving into testing season, and we can feel very confident that we have done everything that we can to provide the support so that they can be successful.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Ms. Tippett.
We use some of our ESSER funding to kind of beef up intercession. I'm wondering if we are still able to do that. And as we develop our future budget, is that something that we might be able or want to continue to do?
Any questions, Mr. Cruz?
Mrs. Tippett, I would love to say that that's an easy question to answer, but the short version is that we've had to play a huge shell game with some of the federal funds to be able to cover. We expanded the opportunity for intercession with the intent to use ESSER dollars or federal COVID relief dollars. Because of some of the strings that are attached to those dollars, we may have to move some shells around to make that happen. But the bottom line is we expanded the services to meet the needs of students as they recover from COVID. Moving forward, our intent hearing 15%, that's still a little higher number than what we have served in traditional years. It's usually closer to around 10. So we will adjust whatever we need to and be able to handle that. If it remains at 15%, then we will budget and make sure that we've got that capacity, regardless of where those funding sources come from.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, one thing I would like to just add to Mr. Cruz's comments is that one of the things that we've done in the past when we were bumping up against, we didn't have as much ESSER money to move around, is that we adjusted the structure. And so we had intercession available at hubs rather than at every site. It's better to be able to have it at every site so that students are at their home school with their home teachers. But we have found other ways to kind of address the need. And if that becomes something that we have to do, there are other options in how we structure.
Mr. Bester, did you have a question?
Yes, in regards to historically, it's been 10% of the population that have participated. This year it was 15. What's the reason for the increase?
Great question, Mr. Cruz.
Mrs. Penn.
President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, members of the board, some reason for the increase is, for one, we're having it at the school site, so that bit of transportation or wondering, what it might be like at another school, that is less of a concern. We've also just, because we've had the funding, been very proactive about identifying and having conversations with parents and being extra vigilant in getting students on campus. And quite honestly, we have parents who are wanting to provide the best opportunities for their kids as well. And so they see the need coming out of the pandemic, and that partnership has just been very strong.
Thank you. You good? Okay.
And our high school intercession, is that in person?
Mr. Cruz.
Mrs. Penn.
Our high school intercession has been, just want to check with Mr. Hurley. I believe it's been online. Yeah, high school intercession has been online. I didn't want to misspeak, so I wanted to double check.
And that historically has been the case, correct?
Mr. Cruz.
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
Has it been online at the school though?
Mr.
Oof.
Cruz.
I mean, my kids went to the school, but it was still online.
Yeah.
I mean, not this year, but in previous years.
Mrs. Penn, I don't know the granularity of that.
With Mr.
Mr. Hurley.
Or.
President Pratt,
Mhm.
student briefly, but we are on version of like nine.
Yeah.
Bigger section for high school, trying to find the best fit and the balance of how to get kids caught up with their learning without making it feel like they were punished and didn't want to go. So your pencils are constantly being graded, trying, and we've gone from 4 full days to half day to hybrid half days to you come and you do this. So they're constantly trying to figure out what's the best way to backfill kids' knowledge and understanding in a way that makes it so that they know something they can tool learning trip.
Any other questions? Really great questions. No? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Penn. That was very informative. Thank you. Our next item is high school choice, also an inform item. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. We recently wrapped up the high school choice process, and Mr. Hurley has led that process. And it's just worth reviewing where we are every year with this, because it is something that is a unique Vail thing we do. So Mr. Hurley, take it away.
President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Kruth. My gift to Mrs. Peterson, I emailed you all of my notes. There's lots of numbers that are going to come at you, so you can just take a break and we'll get you there. But we're in our 7th year of doing high school choice the way we do it. And we have our own particular flavor for how we do those things. I can tell you that during those 7 years, we've averaged 91% of our families getting their first choice. That's something we really, really try to work on. Telling you that 91% of our families get our first choice. We've never had 100% of our families get our first choice. Not since we opened Empire High School have 100% of our families gotten their first choice. So it's like the thing that we're constantly chasing, but it's very difficult. I will tell you that we have always had, in 7 years that I've been working with this, 100% of our families get their first or second choice. We've never sent a family to their third choice. We ask for it just in case, but for lots and lots of reasons, we work really hard. We've had principals, Mr. Hassey included, where I have to call and say, hey, I know you really wanted this number, but can you just take 6 more? Because I don't want that family to get their third choice. And they've always said yes. So I really appreciate our principals for doing that. Average was 91%. This year, we've had about 87%. So it was a little bit less. I can tell you that every year, all the way through since the beginning of Empire, someone has had a lottery somewhere. There were years Empire had lotteries. There were years Entrada had lotteries. There were in the years where Micah Mountain has lotteries.
So we can't quite fit everyone where we want to be, but our kind of takeaways from this thing is it's not perfect. It's not fun to give 13% of the people their second choice. I wish I could give everybody what I want, but luckily as a dad of 4 kids, I'm realizing that that's not my job either. Sometimes I try really hard though, and I want to get them there. But what I will tell you is our high school choice system and our transportation zones work. It is a positive thing for our families. We had over 26% of the families in the Micah Mountain Zone chose something other than Micah Mountain. So everyone talks, so that's the place, that's the place. 26% of the families that live there said, great school, love it. I really want something else. And so by drawing boundaries, we would really be shifting the people that are unhappy. There's no way to just make it perfect. We did have 70 families from the non-Micah Mountain Zone get their kids in this year. So it was great because people were able to go back and forth. And another great takeaway was Andrada really had a huge number. So Andrada is their highest number in about 6 years. Last year, they're currently sitting about 225. And I think at this time next year, they're going to be about 260. So kudos to Mr. Parks and his staff. They've really done some amazing work and marketing and letting people know exactly how great that school is. So, funny story about high school choice. I was at the air show as well. Brand new family came up and talked to me and asked, hey, how does this thing work? I don't understand high school choice. And so I started to explain, you can pick your school. And she said, oh, no, never mind. We're from Phoenix. I understand how that works. And literally next to her in line to spin the wheel for some free candy or something was a mom from Vail. And she said, no. Our kids get buses to the schools. That's different. And the mom, wait, what? I can pick the school and you give me a ride? So I got to explain the whole system. Well, unless you live in this zone, there's one school, and unless you live in this zone. But it really is, it's a blessing to the families that we get that transportation. And I also explained to her that the reason high school choice works is because, and it's important for us to remember this, from the beginning, we built the schools for this. When we built Empire, we built it as a choice and made it purposely different than Cienega. And when we built Andrada, we built it purposely different. And when we built it, so we have been working on this and purposely building schools a little bit differently from the beginning, and that really helps. But again, circling back to just a huge kudos to our transportation department, to Jerry and to his staff and the drivers and the routers. Their life would be a lot easier if we just drew lines. But the blessing that we're giving families that they can make choices and go places is really a great thing for them. Real quickly, also then kind of on high school enrollment and how that plays out. This was our biggest 9th grade class ever. The group that's in right now is our largest group ever. In fact, we have over 300 more high school kids today than we've ever had in any year ever. The amazing Amy Castle, who works with enrollment, this is a year-round job. Remember, no one moves into our district in high school and they say, that's your school. If you move next to Mesquite, that's your school. We can talk to you about other options, but that's your school. Every single family that ever moves in has to go through Amy, and she works with principals to find out where things work. So it's constantly work, but it is great for families to get to hear and learn and know about what's going on. The other important thing about saying it's our biggest group ever is this is an appropriate time to really 5 times really thank our community for passing that bond. Next year, we will have about 900 more high school kids than we had before the bond passed. There simply would not be room to stuff them in the other schools. We would be talking about 1,200 kids in Andrada and 1,200 kids at Empire and 2,400 kids at Cienega. And all of those are impossible. So thank you to our community for passing the bond. It's really been great for us. The future of enrollment we know is a little bit different, but right now the pig that's in that snake's belly is sitting right on top of high school. And so we're really busting at the seams and doing some great things. Do you have any questions about high school choice or high school enrollment in general?
Any comments or questions? Ms. Tippett.
I don't know. I feel like I'm sending singers tonight. Sorry. What were the final freshman class choices? Numbers.
Mr. Hurley. I've got it. You know, one of the things about presenting to the board is you do your little show and then you just say, any question in the world could come to me. So I just have to be ready for all of them. So
Thank you.
the final choices, you would like to know the first choices, kind of what they put as their first choices. Okay, so we ended up 1,256 families made a choice. So we remove all of the families, even if they're in 8th grade and they're out of district, even if they're in 8th grade with us, we remove them out unless they're staying with Vail Academy. They get brought back in later, but our families that lived in our district boundaries, 1,256. 255 of them picked Andrade as their first choice. Let me go in highest to lowest. So Micah Mountain had 479 of those choices, so about 40%. And then Cienega had 276, Andrade 219, Empire 166, Vail Academy 21. And so we had about 154 families, 152 families not get in, so they all shuffled to their second choices. So that helped bump up some of those numbers. So Andrade, for example, went from 219 to once they got to second choices, 250.
Awesome.
And that number just as Micah Mountain has been at 41% now for 3 years in a row. So the other schools are kind of going up and down, and that's historically changed, but we've kind of been, Micah Mountain has been at 41% almost exactly for 3 years.
Awesome. If all, are you done? Any other comments or questions? Well, I just want to comment just that this really is incredible, just the amount of work that goes into it. And it's only because we value this, that the parents being able to choose, families being able to choose what high school they go to. So thank you to everybody that's involved in this process. It really is pretty incredible. We're losing somebody. Oh, got it. Okay.
One more thing I want to say
Yes,
until we start,
please.
because I know you're ready to move on and we all have other stuff to do tonight. In the history of doing this, we've never had a family not choose. So every family chooses. So at the end of the window, we call every family, we email every family, we reach out to every family. We've never had a family that got placed into a school. So we really, it's important that this is family high school choice, not high school placement. So we really need to, when I come back the next time and thank a bunch of people, I'll thank the ladies that made phone calls and emails and drug parents to make the choices.
Yeah, I just want to, it's a boatload of extra work, but it's the right kind of an intentional extra work to make to serve our families. And it sends an incredible message to families who are choosing 4 years before they're gonna have to sit down and make another choice about what happens post high school. And so it's all those same processes, all those same thoughts need to go into it. So we're equipping families to have those discussions ahead of a time period when they're going to have them in just a few short years later.
I also think, it looks different in many different situations where we say that we partner with parents. And this is a great example of this. So for parents who maybe didn't turn it in time, that we're going to reach out to you. So, and help them have that ownership. So I just love all the examples of ways that we partner with parents. Okay, just last call if there's any other comments or questions. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Or maybe you're staying. All right, you stay there.
Wait, I do have one.
Yes,
Oh, sorry,
Ms. Tippett.
phone friend, just thinking about are the students who are within our district who are out of district open enrollment, you said
Oh, yeah.
In district students go through the choice process first and then you
Yes.
layer on top. I guess my question is, with Micah Mountain being in the lottery situation, does that mean that no out of district open enrollment students are at Micah Mountain?
So President Pratt, Mr. Cruz, members of the board, there are legal rules on open enrollment, what we can and can't do. And so we follow those things. And so legally you have to serve, there's a bucket, there's 3 groups in one bucket. Students who returned from the last year. So if an open enrollment 11th grader happened to have gotten in Micah Mountain when there was room, they can stay for 12th grade. Siblings of students who were enrolled. So if there happened to be an open enrollment 11th grader who got in 2 years ago when we had space and they have a sibling coming in, they're allowed to get in.
Mhm.
And then students in the district, and we prioritize students in the boundary. And then we are allowed to, and we choose to prioritize staff members. So if there are any students in Micah Mountain for the last 2 years that got in, it's because they live outside the district. It's either because a staff member works for us or they have an older sibling that was already in. That's legally what we have.
The short answer is it'd be a very rare situation if that were the case.
Right.
In some other circumstance would precede that.
And I would say the same is for Empire. So Micah Mountain and Empire are single digits. It's not a big number. And Cienega and Andrade and Vail Academy are actively going out and recruiting and saying yes and reaching out to families.
Thank you. Okay, great questions. Thank you. All right, so now we will move on to item D, elementary and secondary school emergency relief or ESSER fund update, also an important item. just in case this goes longer than 7 minutes, I'm just gonna let you know, I have a family obligation tonight, which is why my two handsome boys are in the audience. So I'm gonna have to just very hopefully discreetly leave at 8:20. I'm gonna commit to my boys. I'm gonna leave at 8:20. So I want to hear this, so I'm gonna stay until I absolutely have to leave. So I just want to apologize in advance if I have to scoot out, and then Ms. Tibbetts will take over the meeting.
Thank you.
So
President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Kruth. Sometimes we do things that are absolutely worth our time, and sometimes we jump through hoops because that's what the federal government says us to do. Federal government has required us every 6 months until 2023 to talk about our safe return from the COVID pandemic. We have to update it every 6 months, or when the CDC makes changes. The CDC hasn't made any changes since August. There are no changes to be made. So we are just contractually obliged, because we receive funds, to every 6 months update things. We've made 2 changes to ours. One is we no longer provide on-site COVID testing. And the other is now we've joined like a Pima County Health Department, schools, health update group that meets virtually once in a while. Those are the only changes we're gonna make. Otherwise, we're gonna submit the same as we did in July, which is schools open for business, and that's what we are.
great, thank you. Comments or questions?
I'm ready
Well-
to be done.
I know.
Yeah, one more in 6 months.
One more 6 months. I know.
September.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, I was grateful when it was available when we needed it, but I am
Yes.
very grateful that we are not doing COVID testing on sites anymore and some of those other things. So, okay, any comments or questions then? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Hurley. We're gonna move on to land between the tracks overview, also note in form item, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Pratt and members of the board. As Mr. Carney comes up to present on this, I'll just quick reminder and overview. About 10 years ago, we purchased the land lovingly called the land between the tracks, which includes the old town site of Ale. And a group set out and put some guardrail language around that, and it is continues to just chug along. So I thought it's a good time to just step back and do some quick reminders about what we're doing on that site and why. And so Mr. Carney's going to provide that overview. Mr. Carney.
Thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, and members of the board. There on the screen there, you'll see an outline of what actually constitutes the between the tracks, the land between the tracks. Just a couple of details, as Mr. Kruth mentioned, it was actually purchased in 2015, 15 acres, of which that front 5 acres is, if I know you've all been in that area, is where you'll currently see all the tiny homes and the thrift store and other things I'll be talking about today. Once upon a time, just some fun facts, it was the actual Vail Town Center many years ago. Historic Highway 88 ran through there, still is noted as such. And it also was home to a rodeo arena at one time as well, which is kind of fun. Mr. Kruth mentioned aforementioned between the track values. When the land was purchased, community members were brought together, staff members, and created the values that you see on the screen there. One being that essential values, we wanted the area to be the hub of intersection between schools and community. We wanted to not only honor the past history, but inspire the future. And we wanted to do this in ways that were financially defensible and self-sustaining. Other important values, we wanted to be authentically Vail, provide student opportunities, be a place where learning occurs, also be visually appealing, and then be congruent to VUSD culture. And so as I share some things that are going on between the tracks, I hope you'll see evidence of those values on the things that I share with you. I'd like to start with the Old Vail Post Office. You can't drive down Colossal Cave Road without noticing the Old Vail Post Office. J.J. Lamb of the Vail Preservation Society, as you know, is an incredible force. We've worked with J.J. on many projects, and we're really excited. The board was a part of approving some work that needed to be done between the district and Vail Preservation Society on a recent lease, as JJ and her group were awarded $250,000 in restoration funds. And so we're excited about that work beginning, and we'll look to the future to see the completion of that is what we're all looking forward to. And I know JJ especially. Some other things going on land between the tracks. We have the Vail Chamber, which is formerly Straw Bale House. This was built in 1997 by the Kelly family. And just a fun fact, one of the Kelly family members, Mrs. Kelly, was a Vail parapro at one time. This is the home of the current Vail Chamber of Commerce, and is not only used for Chamber of Commerce business, but also there's the use of renting of office space there to various groups within the community. And in addition to that, a variety of folks use it. I know a local church uses it. We as a district sometimes will congregate there for various meetings as well. We also have the thrift store, which is led by Leda Robinson, who is actually a parent of 2 kids in our district. A lot of shopping goes on there. In fact, occasionally my 18-year-old will come home with a shirt and I'll say, "Where did you get that?" And he'll say, "Well, I got it from the thrift store, Dad," which is kind of fun. Also of note, as we look at those values to have a place where students activity can occur. Our transition school to work students are often, you'll see them there assisting within the thrift store. And one of the other main primary functions is that the thrift store helps to fund the food bank, which we'll talk about resources in the Vail Food Bank next. A couple of things there. The person who heads up the food bank is Liana Hicks, also a grandparent here of 2 students within the Vail School District. Just some stats I think are pretty eye-popping. On an annual basis, they have about 350 volunteers who volunteered this past year 15,000 hours and provided 80,000 tons of food to the Vail community. I also like to speak to the backpack program, which is, again, where education is a community effort, and we want the land between the tracks to be congruent to Vail values. This is a community effort involving our TSW students, resources, St. Rita's Church, and all 22 of our Vail schools. Currently, 315 backpacks are distributed every weekend to families in need within our school district. Within those backpacks contain enough food for a breakfast for both Saturday and Sunday, lunch for Saturday and Sunday, dinner for Saturday and Sunday, protein snacks, and milk. Excuse my typo there as I put milks down, but don't give me too much grief on that. I just noticed that kind of thing. In any event, if you, I would encourage you right now, this is the backpack program is housed at Cottonwood Elementary. In the past, it's been at Land Between the Tracks, but we're excited. We'll be soon having it back there located right behind the food bank. And just encourage you, if you haven't had an opportunity, when they do take the time, the machine, the system that they have in place to get all those backpacks loaded in one day, it's really an impressive endeavor. And if you're in search of inspiration, I encourage you to stop by and give a hand. I've done that before, and it is indeed inspiring to see the work that goes on. We also we want to be a place of commerce, and so one of the mainstays out there is the Vail Coffee Stop, which I know many of you stop by on mornings and have coffee there from the Tate family. We also have El Hero Taco truck and hot dog truck out there currently 6 days a week providing food for the community. And then I'm a firm believer that one of the greatest hallmarks of success is a combination of hard work, expertise, but also really, really good fortune. Good night, Mrs. Pratt. And I say that good fortune because one piece of good fortune that we have going between the tracks is indeed Mark Tate. Mark Tate is just a tireless worker over there in trying to pull people together, providing opportunities for that intersection between community and commerce, student performances. Just about every Saturday, something's going on at Between the Tracks, in part because of Mark's efforts. And one highlight is the second Saturday. And currently, approximately 45 vendors with a waiting list come out every Saturday to participate in that. And I also want to say that he's not contractually obligated, but Mr. Tate takes a portion of those proceeds, a significant portion, and gives them back to the school district as well. So there is no way I can do justice to the good work of Mr. Tate, but he is a significant player over there and super grateful for not only those things he does, but the other thing that he's really helpful for is just being eyes and ears when things are going on or we want to make moves over there. The first person I always talk to is, "Hey, Mark, tell me what's going on. What do you think?" And so we greatly appreciate Mark. Also, we're proud of our efforts with tiny homes for staff. This is a part of, if you remember, Aaron Schmidt was here last board meeting talking about the efforts of career and technical education, specifically our building trades kids at Cienega High School. Currently, we have 5 tiny homes out there, with the 6th slated to arrive here in April. We're really excited about that. We have future plans that we might have as many as 24 tiny homes out there. There are 3 paths to being in a tiny home. First of all, you have to be a Vail staff member, and teachers do get preference. But one is you can purchase your own home, have it built for you. And one of our tiny homes out there as indeed that where one of our staff members had one built by a gentleman out in the White Mountains based on the specifications that we require. A second path is we've had a local community member who's purchased a home and she rents it out to one of our staff members. And then the third path, and the one where we have most tiny homes come from, is again our building trades kids at Cienega High School. And it's exciting to see that we do have a waiting list, but it's also a little bit of a concern, right? Because that just shows us that our staff does need housing, and hopefully we can continue to pump those out a little bit quicker to provide that housing for staff. Some of the current challenges out there for land between the tracks, with all that's good that's going on. We do have some issues with lack of septic out there, water, electricity. We know that if you can get through that gauntlet in the morning of going by Old Vale and the train tracks and Acacia at 8 a.m., you've done something right. That's an accomplishment in itself. But getting in and out can be a challenge from time to time. So as we look to the future, that's just something that we somewhat have to accept, of those who might want to be a part of that. But there's also some fun that can be had with that. We often talk about maybe Mr. Tate should, whenever that train blows, be giving away a free coffee or something like that. I don't know if he'd go for that, but we should probably embrace that challenge. And then we also have a little bit of a challenge with lighting, because of lack of electricity at night. That area is dark, and there are safety concerns there, as well as the opportunity for people to have various endeavors out there because of the lack of lighting. So those are things we'll be working to address over the long haul. In terms of what's in the future, well, the possibilities are endless. A couple that I'll bring to your attention. In mid-April, we're excited. We're going to do some renovation at the chamber there, just to look to beautify the area. That is one of the essential values that the community came up with for the between the tracks value. So we'll be looking to make some changes there. We'll also be looking at in the future, do we want to use that extra space for our own needs, for additional transportation space or other needs that we might have. Some things that people have also clamored for is, could there be an outdoor performance theater there? And then we've had some discussions, which we've shared with you in the past, about possibly leasing this land to a local developer who then could expedite that process of creating more homes for staff, as well as bringing in additional business and commerce opportunities. So just a brief look at some of the many things that are going on between the tracks. What questions do you have for me?
Yeah, that's right. I'm up. Any comments or questions? Mr. Buster?
How many individuals are actually on the tiny house waiting list, Mr. Carney?
Yes, Clerk Tippett, is that what okay, thank you. And Mr. Kruth and members of the board. Currently we have somewhere approximately 10 to 12. Most of them are classified staff members. There are 2 teachers that are currently on that wait list. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? Can we go back to the map of the site?
Yeah. Is that the one
I'm
you're
gonna
referring to,
ask
Ms. Tippett?
Yes. Thank you. Ask a quick question. It's related to this area. What is this?
That's okay. That's private property that Mr. Baker and Mr. Flores kicked themselves for not purchasing for $15,000 20 years ago when it was offered up.
Is it occupied?
Yes, there's some occupancy in there now. It's private owner, been in private owner hands for a number of years. But when the owner approached the district about selling that land many, many years ago, there was no Marianne Cleveland, there was no Cienega High School. If you can imagine that, there was nothing. It was just vacant desert beyond there. Now that's a prime piece of private property.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I don't
Mrs.
really have a
Anderson.
question. I just thank you for this update. As you went through each of the items, like I just see how students benefit and are blessed through all of them. Right, it's community effort here, and I see that community, and I feel community when I go there. And so I'm grateful for the vision that was seen for this area. Our family has been blessed by that area. just from opportunities I've had to serve there, but also my children. Being able to serve there and also perform and just do all kinds of things. And so thank you. And thank you. I just want to say thank you to Mark Tate also, just giving opportunities for kids. That when people drive by there, I don't think that's what they see. But I see that, and I've seen it. And I don't know that that's really what people see, but I see that it's opportunities for kids in that area.
Clerk Tippett, Mr. Cruth, Ms. Anderson, first of all, thank you for that comment. And I'm also remiss because I mentioned the benefits that for our transition to work students, but there are many other students in our district that are out there performing, whether it's theater, whether it's music, whether it's instrumentation. And so we greatly appreciate those, as you noted, many of which Mr. Tate helps to bring to that area. One of the things, as people drive by, I just want to acknowledge this, is that area needs some beautification, in all honesty. But that's also the piece there where we want to make sure that we are, to our taxpayers, we can look them in the eye and say, hey, we are not losing money on this situation. So we want to be pragmatic. We want to beautify that area, but also we need to make sure that there's money available to do that. And we're also hopeful that when we have our talks with our developer, our ongoing talks, which seem promising at this point, that if that were to occur and move forward, that would expedite that process as well.
One other thing I just want to add, as the picture of the land is up, one of the driving purposes behind purchasing the property wasn't really part of the initial part was, hey, what could we do with that front space and how could there be that intersection between community and schools? But really the back 10 acres is just great space for us to be able to expand, for the district to be able to expand in the future. When you look across the railroad tracks at the bus barn, other facilities, other spaces, where do you put those things when the district is twice its size or more? What does that look like? So we've got future space to be able to expand on land that frankly isn't going to bother anybody else. If parking and running buses at 4:30 in the morning next to a neighborhood is not good neighborly things to do. This will save someone at some point in the future, in some board in the future, the headache of having to be able to do that.
I actually grew up right next to the VUSD bus depot, and I know exactly what you're talking about. As a
Right there on
teenager.
Broadway.
Yeah, yep, exactly. But I appreciate the opportunity for growth there, for our facilities and for transportation or whatever it is that we might see there, and the opportunity to purchase that land for a significant discount and reasonable rates. We couldn't have, if we would have just waited until the need came up, we would be paying for a premium piece of land at the premium price. And, walking through that decision to purchase that back section of the land was, it was forward thinking, not right now thinking. I was part of that decision, and I still feel like that was a really good decision. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, not seeing any, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is fiscal year 2023/2024 budget. This is an inform item, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Clerk Tippett, members of the board. This is the budget building season for school districts, and we're intentionally doing that. We spent time in a study session just reviewing the base components of our budget. And I just want to highlight a few pieces, and we'll continue this item between now and the end of June and the first meeting in July. Really, between now and then, our process is to refine what our priorities are, what budget capacity we have to be able to execute those priorities, and then bring to the board a proposed budget of which hopefully will be approved at that point sometime at the end of June. And then that proposed budget will go to public review and then be voted on to adopt that budget in the first meeting in July. So just wanted to state the overview of that process. We are looking at this point, in my mind, what are the lumps of clay that we need to mold into more detail as we develop that process, going back and reflecting on input that we received from staff and our site councils back in the fall, and in kind of a ranked priority, staff compensation. How do we transition off some of the funded, the federal dollar funded positions, and what does that look like? Safety, especially capital items like things like fencing and crash barred gates and stuff like that. Some additional funding for fine and performing arts, all-day kindergarten taught by certified teachers, and then some support, especially at the elementary level, for our advanced learners. We've made great progress already this year on many of those pieces. The intent is to continue to make progress on those with the future budget components. Also looking at if there's capacity, how do we make some adjustments, especially with site budget allocations to help with inflation costs, because things like supplies and materials cost more, things like capital items cost more. And then if we have some ability left over even within that, can we tweak some of the staffing ratios to look at how do we provide additional teacher staff for sites to make decisions around. I think those are kind of, if I were to lay out the chunks of clay that we talked about in our study session, just want to be transparent about that in a regular board meeting. Those are the pieces that we talked about. And we will be refining those and bringing them back. The good news is that we are in a very healthy place in regard to our overall budget and the ability to have budget capacity. We should be able to make some pretty significant headway on most, if not all, of those priorities. So part of it's just going to be fine tuning what that looks like. So it's just kind of a high level overview of this point of where we are in the budget development process. This will be probably not an every board meeting topic on the regular agenda item, but a frequent topic between now that first meeting in July. That's all I have. It's a study. It's an ongoing. Actually, it's listed as an inform item at this point, but we'll probably switch to a study item in future meetings.
Any comments or questions? Yes, we spent quite a bit of time working through this, or laying the groundwork really in the study session. And so as we continue to gather information, we'll have more to discuss. All right. So if there's no more comments or questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. The next item is executive session. The board may enter executive session to consider an appeal regarding the hearing officer's recommendation for a student. I would accept the recommendation to enter.
Do you want to take a break before we enter into executive session and then clear the room and do the executive session?
Let's
go into formal executive session.
Let's do that. Let's go ahead and break to, let's say 8:45. So we have time to.
Yep.
About 10 minutes. Have the family also come and join us.
Yes.
That's great.
Enter into executive session, and then
We need a motion to take a break, right?
yes.
And then
Motion, actually, we can motion, she can put us into recess. And then we can make the motion, go into executive session, then we go into recess before.
I think it'd be better to do a recess now.
Recess, so yeah, go into recess until 8:45 and then come back for executive session.
Okay. So we're going
Into a recess.
into recess till 8:45.
Okay.
Yep.